Good evening and welcome to the Marseille View, the English language OM podcast. My name is Stefan Robert and I'll be your host tonight. I'm joined by three guests. I've got Ed Spencer. Hello, Ed.
Good evening.
Good evening. Ben Senuye.
Close enough. Good evening.
And Luca Julien.
Yeah, that's me. Hi, everyone.
Thank you. So this is the first ever edition of the Marseille View. For those of you who aren't following us on Twitter, this is an Olympique de Marseille fan podcast. We're not professional football pundits, we're just OM fans who want to talk about Marseille. The Marseille View has really come from Twitter. We're hoping to create an English language podcast to reach those Marseille fans outside of France, especially those whose first language might not be English. And they might not be able to understand the bulk of OM podcast, websites, TV shows, fan forums, etc. We had a good response from Twitter about setting this up, so we decided to finally give it a go ahead. We've got a group of OM fans from Europe and across the Atlantic who hopefully will be involved over the coming podcasts in the next weeks and months, and we'll be able to bring you regular podcasts. We'll try to follow the same format, most episodes reviewing matches, discussing upcoming games. Tonight we'll review Sunday's game with Saint-Etienne, and we'll also look forward to next Sunday's match against Nice. We'll also have a look at some relevant OM news over the last couple of weeks, and we'll even, because it's 1 month after the January transfer window closed, we'll have a look at Marseille's incomings and outgoings in the January window. As it's our first podcast ever, we'll start tonight with some introductions. So I think it would be good if we can all say a little bit about how we came to be OM fans. Who volunteers to go first with this one?
Yeah, happy to start.
Hi
guys, my name is Ben. Hi everyone. Very simply for me, I guess it's a bit of a cultural thing. I was born in the UK. My dad's French. My grandfather on my dad's side is from Marseille. So I moved to France at the age of 4. I grew up in sort of Paris region, but my grandfather made sure that I was sort of heavily indulged with everything Marseille and OM related. I think that one of my first childhood memories is the 1993 Champions League final, which is one of the first ever games I remember watching on TV. I've still got the VHS recording of it. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Followed them ever since. Moved back to the UK in 2007. Fond memories of supporting them here, going to away games. I wasn't at Anfield in 2007 when Valbuena scored, but I remember watching that in the university bar with an OM shirt, and all the Liverpool fans thought I was a United fan taking the piss. And then they actually heard me singing the chants in French, so they clocked on that I was really French. And been following them ever since. I tend to try and go to the Velodrome at least once a season, and then last year I was fortunate to travel to a couple of the away European games, Salzburg, and then I went to the final in Lyon. And then Lucas will elaborate on this, but we've recently set up as part of the club's initiative with foreign-based fans, the OM Nation programme. We're both a part of the UK chapter, if we can call it that. It's not a religious cult. Well, it is for us, I guess. It is for us OM fans, because it is like a bit of a religion for us. And we get together every Sunday night. We have a WhatsApp group. We can discuss that later on, but we try and get together. As an example, last night there were about between 15 and 20 of us in London Bridge watching the game in a bar on a big screen. And that's it. That's me.
Brilliant. I'm so jealous that all that's going on in London. It's so hard to find Marseille fans outside of London. All right. Shall I go next? Yeah, I think I'll say a few words about myself. I mean, my dad's French as well, so I grew up a Marseille fan. My dad's not actually from Nîmes, though. From Marseille, he's actually from Nîmes. But I guess when I was a kid, Nîmes weren't very good, and Marseille are quite popular in that region. And most of all my family, cousins, uncles, all supported Marseille as well all my life. So my earliest memories were similar to yours, early 90s. Marseille actually been quite good and been on the television a lot. The one game that kind of sticks out to me is against Rangers. I remember them playing against Rangers in the European Cup. I think that sits with me because I'm from Glasgow, and I remember all growing up, all through my childhood, everyone was always talking about Rangers Marseille whenever they found out I was a Marseille fan, and the fact that Marseille had apparently cheated Rangers out of a European Cup final, but yeah. That's pretty much my story. Like yourself, I try to make it out there once a year to see a game, but I haven't actually been this season, but hopefully get to see one before the end of the season. Ed, do you want to have a bash?
Yeah, sure. My name's Ed. I wasn't really a football fan until Brazil 2014 World Cup, and then after the World Cup, I needed to find a team. And I was a big fan of Bernard Tapie because I was studying business studies, and I was a huge admirer of him, and I fell on Marseille. There was a documentary about the '93 team. I've got no real family that are French. I've been to France for nearly 15 years on holiday. Unfortunately, it's in the Bordeaux region, so I've got a few dirty looks. But yeah, I follow them every game. I watch them. I'm probably one of the worst people to watch a football game with because I'm jumping around on the sofa when Marseille score, or screaming like a banshee, or kicking bins. It's just. But I wanted to go to Velodrome, but it's just time with university at the moment. Plus, it's quite difficult to get a flight from Birmingham to Marseille to go to Frankfurt. But hopefully one day, I've got plenty of time. Go to Marseille, just hopefully go there and 3 points. It's not a crushing 5-0 defeat.
Brilliant. Lucas, is it Lucas or Luca?
It's Luca.
Luca. Okay. Do you want to?
I'll accept either, to be honest. Yeah. So, I'll be your first French-born of the podcast. So yeah, I'm Luca. I was born not so far from Marseille, in Martigues, which is half an hour away from Marseille. Lived there for about 12 years before I moved to Winchester in England, and now I'm at uni in London. As obviously Ben knows me from the London team. So I'm now 22, and yeah, I've been a weird spot, because I'm too young to have experienced the glory of Marseille in the 90s, but I'm also too old to be that like post Didier Deschamps like era, where you get a lot of fanboys of Balotelli at the moment, and then Thauvin. So I'm a bit I'm from this weird generation where I haven't experienced a lot of success, but you still get the loyalty and like the craziness. In terms of watching the games, I also I go see my family back in Marseille once a year, so I tend to see the first home game of the season. So this year was Toulouse, which was not a bad game, to be honest, 1-4-0. Yep. But yeah, I mean, as Ben knows me from the games, I'm a pretty vocal supporter.
Indeed.
Bit opinionated at times, I reckon. I broke my debit card. Do you remember the Mitroglou miss during the Marseille-Dijon game?
Yeah.
I smashed my debit card on the table, and it took me a month to get it fixed.
I remember having to buy the beers. I remember that part.
Oh, God. Yeah, I think it was at this point that I officially left the Costas FC fan club, and then decided to just hate both strikers. But anyway, back to more general points. Yeah, so I think I'm quite excited to do this podcast because I listen to a lot of French-speaking podcasts, and there's a lot of fans outside of France who obviously cannot listen to them. And there's probably about tens and tens of French-speaking podcasts, but I'm really proud to be part of this. To be honest, it's I reckon it'll probably reach a lot of fans out there who can't listen to these podcasts.
No worries there.
Brilliant. So I think we'll move on to the next section of the agenda. So thought we could now talk about Sunday's match against Saint-Étienne. For those of you who didn't see the game, Marseille won quite comfortably 2-0 at home. What are your thoughts, guys?
I thought it was good for performance first half, but second half it was just it was drab. It was like
I agree, Ed. Sorry. Yeah, we as you say, we we tend to do the opposite, don't we? We tend to play like we played in the first half in second halves of games, and this game was the complete opposite.
Yeah, we played like that against Apollyon. We were 2-0 up, and we dropped a clanger, and it was embarrassing, quite frankly. But we've just got to keep this momentum up. We're 5 points behind now, Leon. We can do it. We can get Champions League.
Yeah, I agree. Especially when you look at the upcoming games.
The
when you look at
list.
because if you look past the PSG game, which I agree is pretty much a guaranteed loss, we have very, very easy games for the next 6 games. We have Angers, then we have Nantes, we have obviously the classic Bordeaux game, and we have Nîmes at home, at Strasbourg. We have a lot of games that we can get 3 points at. And then you compare it to Lille, who have Saint-Etienne next week, and then are playing in the next 5 games. They're playing Lyon, PSG, Reims away, Nantes away. So I think there's I still think that Lille will drop points and we will catch them up because they're playing shocking football in the last few weeks.
Do you not think that Lyon's more realistic to catch than Lille, given that Lille have been winning? They're on such a long winning streak.
They have got a 10-point cushion as well.
Yeah,
it's doable. Luca is right. I think both of those teams will drop points. If we're ever the optimistic OM fans, we'd like to think that we've dropped our fair share of points, and that's done for us now. We're now in a sort of momentum, and we have the edge in terms of, as Luca said, the fixture list, but also the energy and the positivity that seems to be flowing around the sort of squad at the moment. I mean, it is doable. I think it is doable, but we only have ourselves to control it. We are our own worst enemies at times.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
I think going back to yesterday's game. Sorry, even though Saint-Etienne are a big team and we seem to struggle against big teams, it's just like us against Bordeaux away. We cannot lose against this team, whatever we do. So.
Yeah.
It's been so long, and you've seen these Saint-Etienne home games over the years, and we always find a way to win this game. So I wasn't really worried about that.
True. I initially I was really worried about it, but then I read online about the fact that I think we hadn't lost that game for so many years, and I did think,
It's been 40 years. Yeah, 40
that's a
years
long
since
time.
Saint-Etienne won in
40.
Marseille. Similar to our record in Bordeaux, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's some kind of voodoo stuff. It doesn't matter what kind of team you put out. You always either win or lose in Bordeaux, in our case.
And it was quite clear from the opening minutes. You learned quite quickly that Saint-Etienne didn't look quite right. I felt I got the impression that they weren't going to have a good night very early on.
They started without a striker, didn't they? I mean, Diony was on the bench, Beric was on the bench. It seemed more like an attempt to contain us than an attempt to actually go for it. I think they had that clear-cut chance just after the Balotelli opener where Bouna Sarr threw himself when the ball was played across the face of goal.
Oh, yeah.
Luckily, Bouna Sarr blocked it at the far post. And
Thank God.
If we were to sort of do positives and negatives, I think the defence, Bouna Sarr included, was probably one of his best games of the season. It's very reassuring to see that there is some continuity with Caleta and Camara, who really seem to understand each other and bring out strengths in each other. They just seem to have this carefree approach to it that maybe will bite us in the ass against PSG, but for now it seems to be going well. But then it's back to, you don't want to play the defeatist or the negativist, but back to I think, Luca, you mentioned it to me yesterday. I mean, back to after the 2 goals, it was just back to nothing. It was just empty. The contents wasn't there.
Set pieces again. I know it's a good point to be good on set pieces, but you can't always rely on it. And when you look at the content, I'm so happy about the first 30 minutes because we were dominating.
Especially the goal. Sorry, the build-up play that led to the penalty, where Sanson does a really good job of getting the ball back, and then he finds a really, really good pass that. Initially, a lot of us in the bar were shouting because we thought he'd misplaced it, and then suddenly someone runs onto the end of it, and you get a penalty out of it. So, but after that, as you say, there was not much there. We did not create much after that. Can
I say I think Maxi Lopez. Don't know why they're sticking him with on free kicks. He's no Dimitri Payet. Let's be honest with us. But it was reassuring to see Steve Mandanda have a good game. and shake things.
Yes.
Yes, he did make a couple of crucial, especially in the second half. I think he made a very good save from a cross. He actually came off his line for a change.
Yeah, he's been slandered as of late, but I think last night, I think it was a good performance. And look, the only criticism I've really got is Gustavo looked like a headless chicken out there. He looked like he had.
Oh, that was worrying.
He looked like he was running around a supermarket with 5 minutes to closing time. Look.
It's true. Everything he tried was he lost the ball or he fell on the ground to get a cheap free kick, even though it was not a free kick.
Yeah.
Do you think though maybe he's just lacking match practice?
Yeah, I agree. But there's only 11 games in a season. How long are you going to give him?
I would have put him in though, just because I worry about playing a midfield duo of Sanson and Lopez. I just feel like neither of them are really that great at winning the ball back, and it's good to have someone like Strootman or Gustavo who's a bit more of a midfield destroyer, and I just worry against like teams that have got a good midfield. Sanson and Lopez just physically they're not strong enough.
Yeah, positioning wise as well. Yeah,
they are a bit fragile. I think the trouble is Strootman's not much. I mean, Strootman, he has two modes. He has the Strootman that he was before 2014, where he was in speed. And then he has this Strootman where he looks like an old man. He just walks about, loses ball. Oh, they've scored.
Yeah.
You do see flashes, though, this season.
He has improved before he got injured. You're right, Luca. Before he got injured, I think especially the away game at Saint-Etienne, the reverse fixture that was moved from December to January, and that was probably one of his best games in a Marseille shirt.
Yeah. I think Garcia. And as an overall point about the quote unquote leaders of the team just by salary wage, the Strootman, Payet, Gustavo who are sitting on the bench. I wonder how much of that is really what he's saying when it's like, oh, they must win their place back. It's not earned to them. But I mean, Gustavo played his whole season as centre back. He didn't have to. Strootman was playing good, and Payet has been awful for this winter. But he's always great in springtime. Like you can't just keep a 4-4-2 with players that are good, but on form. Sorry, then they're not that great, but they are on form. And just leave all these players on the bench, or not even putting them on. You're playing PSG in 2 weeks' time. You're going to get killed with Sanson and Lopez in the midfield.
But do you not think he's just going to bring in Strootman and Gustavo Payet for that game?
Are you going to send them to the slaughterhouse then? Because they haven't got a game in their feet.
Well, you'd like to think one or two of them will play at least a solid 60 minutes next week against Nice to find their feet again. And plus, that is a must-win game. I think we'll discuss that game afterwards. But as you say, you can't just drop him in. And we've seen the problem with Garcia is he has a tendency to do that. He's done it with Kalita and Rami at Nîmes, where we got slaughtered, and they both had never played together before and looked off the pace. And with Radonjic, the poor lad, he puts him in the Europa League game at home in an empty stadium, and again we struggled because the whole team was struggling. It's not the best climate to drop them back in the 11.
Yeah.
I also think, Luca, I agree. If you put Sanson and Lopez in the midfield, you're going to have a storehouse. But you're also got to think Balotelli up front. He can't do all the work. Your man has really got to get his head cleared. G just can't do anything. He's got the first touch of a truck.
Yeah, he's a pace merchant. He is a pace merchant. Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, we're talking about Gustavo coming off the bench, but let's talk about NG's 5 last games when he's brought nothing off the bench. And then Radonjic is not even on the team sheet. Like, what is this management?
That's strange because Radonjic had started to show a little bit of promise in his last few appearances. I was quite critical of him at the start of the season, but in his last few games, I kind of felt like he was starting to show something. And strangely, he's kind of he's disappeared. So I'm not quite sure what Garcia is thinking, why he's taking him out.
It's insane though. Like when you look at before the season, the last year and a half, the only thing people were praising on Garcia was his man management. He was always seemed to put Zambo at the right time, to not play Kamara too quick, to not put Lopez in like suicide situations. And this year, every single time he had to make a decision on the man he had to put on, or like the run of form, he's always chosen the wrong decision. Like with Strootman, he had an awful run of games before Christmas, and he always played. And now he's starting to get back into the game. Yes, he had an injury to like a couple of weeks ago, but he's back now. And now you're saying you have to win your place back when Sanson and Lopez were awful against Rennes.
Sorry, if you look at the Strootman situation, I mean, there's a couple of I mean, we're all on social media, so on Twitter, there's a video of him that's he's actually getting quite annoyed with NG during the warm up, very vocal. They're playing the ball at a game of keep the ball with one defender in the middle. He's actually screaming at him, mate, you lost the ball, you get in the bloody middle. It's your turn. He's taking it really seriously. So out of all those as you said, those so-called leaders, those big salaries, I think he's probably the one who's the most likely to sort of play his way back into the team, just because he knows that Garcia has faith in him. He brought him here for a reason. I think he's the one who's most likely to start next week. I may be mistaken.
I hope so. I think on a side note, one of these extra topics is, did you guys see his interview in L'Equipe this week?
Very down to earth, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of his one of these interviews when you just put the whole social media back on his side, and it's like he's just taking responsibility for his poor season, saying that he had a bad moving situation where he stayed at a hotel for 4 months, and he really underestimated the level of League One, and he was like snapping into action. Whereas you see the whole front of communication of OM Nation and Balotelli with the selfies and stuff, but I think that there's behind the scenes there's like a brewing discontent with Rolando that we saw today, saying that he's vexed of being put in the stands.
Yeah, apparently he refused to warm up, which
exactly.
It's quite surprising.
Payet, who we know when he doesn't get his way, starts to moan a lot.
It's bad when fans are telling you to bleep off to China.
I'm quite happy with Rolando refusing to play. I'd rather he wasn't near the first 11 anymore. I don't think there's that much he can offer.
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one. I don't know if we kept him around out of charity because he got that bad injury. Let's face it, he is in the club's history. He scored a goal that put us in a European final. It should have been a thank you, goodbye. But I don't know if we kept him on out of charity or because genuinely Garcia thought he could use him when he came back.
No, I think it was charity, but they were like at the time when he comes back. I think it's November time, and Chatzar is really deep down.
Rami was bad as well.
Yeah, and Kamara was for some reason not playing, even though he had a great start of the season.
Yeah, and the Gustavo experiment was starting to show its limits.
I
think Rolando came back just after we got battered away to Lille. And that was one of Rami's last games in the starting 11 where he was just completely out of it.
What the hell do we do with Adil Rami? He's awful. He's like, he's a 12th man for the opposition. He's just constantly, every time I've watched him, he's always given a goal away to the opposition and we've lost points.
Yeah, the Monaco game away was bloody hell. He almost killed us single-handedly in that game.
God, it's not this game as well. Like, I think as a disclaimer, like, I thank Rami. I think the whole team, but I think Rami, because we're talking about him right now, I thank him so much for last season. He was injured the whole time. He came back. He was so classy with how he dealt himself.
Indeed.
But this season, I mean, Ben, you know it from I can't deal with Rami. Every time he gets the ball, I'm putting my hands in the air and I'm like, oh my God, he's going to give the ball away. Because it wasn't just Monaco. The game before, he just takes out the striker in a box for no apparent reason. And the game after is just like poor decisions after poor decisions. And now what do you do with him? His wages reported by L'Equipe are 350k.
He's got to go. I mean, it's...
Where?
I think we're going slightly off topic here, but if you look at the players that are out of contract this summer, I think he's got another year left, but he's close to the end. Rolando is finished. Abdenour, which is he's unheard of. God knows where the hell he is. He's going as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Rami, given his personal situation, moves to the MLS. I think that would be a great move for him for a couple of years.
I'm just not sure if Rami is just unfit and lacking match practice, or if it is just 1 season too many for him.
And he also gave the interview where he was quite honest, and he said, "Look, he's been slated for this. I had a burnout after the World Cup, and everybody on social media was very pissed off because it's, mate, fine, you've had a burnout. You're on 350 grand a week. Sorry, a month. Don't piss off with your burnout and deal with it.
People don't 350 quid to live on. I don't know why he's moaning about.
Exactly. I think it's part of his head. His head stayed in Russia quite clearly. That was the peak for him. He peaked then. He didn't play a minute, but he was there. Fair play to him. He was quite important in the squad and team spirit, apparently. But it's finished. It's another one that, again, Rudy Garcia, he seems to have this misplaced faith in some players and putting them in at the wrong time.
He's actually contracted until 2021, so he's got 2 more years.
Wow.
And it says it's got contract option for another year.
No way.
Oh,
I mean, I'll put my money on the fact that he stays until the end of the contract. He's way too much. Even MLS, they have a strict salary cap. When they can only have.
The only thing that could make him move there is Miss Anderson. Let's face it. that could happen. He could. He is the type of guy who could say, "Hey, I could be." She'll probably get me a job in Hollywood after this.
Yeah. Could she stay in a velodrome though? Because I think Canal Plus and BT loves putting their camera on her.
Oh, Stefan Guy loves her.
Jeez, don't mention that name. That's illegal on OM podcast, mate.
The trouble is, when she's in the velodrome, he's constantly looking at her. I reckon he's looking at her. Christ, I hope Frank's nowhere near her. For goodness sake.
Yeah, I think he tries to pass the ball to her as well. That's why he gives it away.
Well, that's what she can do up front.
I do think that Rami's quite important for the image of the project, and I do think that I do see it hard. I find it hard to believe that they'll sell him so soon. I think that as a French international, he's from the south of France. He's from Fréjus, which isn't that far, I believe, from Marseille. And I think he represents a lot of the things that Hero would want in OM Champions project, which is, French international players, local players that understand what the club's about and have some sort of connection with the club. Rami was well known as a fan of Marseille before he signed, and I think for those kind of
cousin Najat Rami is on a similar podcast to ours.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, absolutely.
I think as you say, he's a great ambassador, and if he was to take on and accept a lesser playing role next year and play 15 or 20 odd games when needed, and take on more of an active ambassador role, and maybe get into coaching, I'd be all for that.
Yeah, I think that's the way forward for him, because we've mentioned the state of our defense, and if next year, pray to God we're not selling Kamara or Taitata, Abdeno leaves, Hubert Chan leaves, Rolando leaves, you have to have at least a third centre back, and I think that's probably the most natural option, is to keep him on.
Yeah, bring someone else then and blood him. I'd love to see us sign another French centre back next year, a younger.
Yeah, even if Rami's just there to, in the dressing room to influence the younger players like Kamara, then I think he can do a job, and it's worth keeping him on for that reason.
I think the same thing for Steve as well, because I think we need a new goalkeeper. It's quite clear. He's not
agreed.
He's not the Steve Mondonda that we used to know. I think there's plenty of good keepers who are young, who are talented, who are coming up that would do the job just fine.
Oh God, please! When you mention, as soon as you mention his name, I'm just literally, I get this adrenaline rush. I can't deal with it. I was so against his coming back, because I understand the recruitment policy of saying we just deal with opportunities. So there was a great opportunity to come back for really cheap, but he came back from an injury when he arrived, didn't he? Because he got injured in Crystal Palace.
Yeah, funny enough as well, when he came back, he looked quite fit. He's probably the fittest I've ever seen him.
We had Pelé though. We had Pelé, so you compare it. It's like when Amavi came, we had Evra to compare him to. So we think, oh my God, it's just Messi coming back to life.
True.
But
actually, I'm just thinking.
There's no. Oh, sorry.
We're just going a bit off topic. Because I think we're going to talk about Mercato in the next section, but I just want to go back to the game. Saint-Etienne. So hold that thought a moment. So going back to the game, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on a couple of performances. So firstly, Lucas Ocampos. I think he had quite a good game actually for once. What did you guys think of Campos?
He needs to play as like a backup to Payet, a backup to Balotelli, maybe in the middle, or maybe go up front too, because I don't think he would be he's good enough as a winger. He's too all over the place.
I don't know. I think you're putting him like more as a striker position. I'd even put him further back. I would just say, mate, you're a bench warmer, unless like it kind of happened at points yesterday where we kind of played 5 at the back.
Yeah, he's a good left wing back. Yeah,
and he's a great left wing back.
He's got defensive qualities. Yeah,
he's got work rate. I think that's what's really appealing about him. And I can see what Ed's saying about putting him behind the striker, because he does really work hard. There's something kind of, I'm going to say this and you're going to laugh, but there's something kind of Luis Suarez about him, and that he gets stuck. Well,
no.
Please, he gets stuck into his opponents, and I'm not saying he's got a fraction of that quality, but he is the kind of player that kind of riles up the opposition. So I think like playing alongside another forward, I can see him.
Stefan, whatever cannabis you want, I want some, mate.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a bit hot and cold, and I respect him. I'm grateful for all he did last season, where clearly he played above. I thought it was finally him hitting his potential, because Monaco, they must have bought him for a reason, but it hasn't quite gone on, and the problem is he fits in too much of the Garcia approach of this season, which has been safeguard the result, safeguard the left wing. Let's block the opposition right back from making runs forward, and Ocampos is quite effective at that against the lesser teams. But
I think
I'd like to, as you say, Luca, I'd like to see him come on when we need to defend the lead, not start the game, so that we can hold the 0-0 for as long as we can.
I think going like more analysis of his game yesterday. I thought at the start of the game we really lent towards the right side. So Sanso and Sakai, really I didn't see them that much. But as the game progressed in that little whatever that second half was, he was great at tidying up the pace. He was great. He got the ball back and passed it back to Camara or Chaitatsar and was like, right, let's go again. He was great at that. But the problem I have is oh my god, make your mind up about your decisions when you have the ball. His game plan is running into someone and getting for lucky bounces.
Yeah. I think he just doesn't have the quality as well. Often you find he makes a run and then he doesn't really know, what to do with it. He tries to turn in and shoot, and then he can't shoot. Or he tries to dribble, he can't dribble.
Exactly. The funniest is when he does pull off a trick or a nutmeg or something. The minute afterwards, he's completely lost. He doesn't know what to do when he's got past the player.
Strange, because he does have a few moments of brilliance. Sometimes, I've seen him score some really nice like scissor kicks and things over the years. And
how many has he tried?
Yeah, true. But there is something there. He's got some sort of raw ability that's he's never really.
Goal against Haas a few weeks ago. But again, you look at the replays, and if it doesn't take that bubble, God knows where the ball goes.
But just for that goal, I am paying 8 million. I was on my TV screen, just gobsmacked for the next 15 minutes, just saying, "What just happened? What just happened?"
So there was another player's performance actually I thought was worth looking at, and I was thinking about the left back position, because Sakai came in for Jordan Amavi. How did you think Sakai did, and how do you think he competes with Amavi for that position?
Well, unfortunately, he isn't competing, because Garcia's, despite consistently playing Sakai at left back last year, and both of them relaying each other after Evra left, I don't know. I don't think Garcia sees him as a real competitor there. But the point being, when he does come in, he always puts in a shift.
Yeah, John Amavi, I think, is far too inconsistent. I mean, the trouble, I think Sakai put in a solid performance. He didn't concede, he didn't cause any issues for his defensive colleague. But will Jordan Amavi accept being the second choice left back? I really don't. So I think Garcia is just playing Amavi in that position just to keep him happy, keep him sweet, and not put his transfer request in.
Yeah, he's not pushing on, but I wouldn't mind him putting in a transfer request.
Yeah, I again, like, he's a player that I'd rather keep him. I just think he needs some quality competition at left back to kind of push him on.
That will spur him on. Yeah. You're right.
I think I'm just, again, it's similar to the Rami thing. I like the fact that he's kind of local. He's not. He's from the south, but he's from, I think, Toulon. He's not from near Marseille, but close enough. And I like the fact that you've got some players from that region that kind of understand what the club means. And I think we've not had that because we've not had that many players come through our own system from Marseille over the years. It's good, we can take what we can get from in and around the south of France. So I kind of liked him from that point of view, that he's to somewhat a local boy. But
I think going back to Sakai and his game. Well, I agree. When he comes on the left side, he's very defensively minded because he's aware of his limitations on his left foot, and so there's nothing gonna when opposing teams really come with game plans clearly now. Just say go on their Marseille left side and it will go through. Sakai really puts an anchor on that side, and that's great. But when you have Sakai and Ocampos on that same side, you saw it in the first 15 minutes when. Lopez would have the ball and he would turn to his right side straight away because you knew there was nothing coming back.
Yeah, you nullify the attacking threat. And to finish, I think on the Sakai Amavi debate. Interestingly enough, Amavi's first game back is PSG, and
oh god,
will he play him? I'd like to see Sakai continue there. If this is the approach we're going for, then PSG
Cavani's going to come back and it's going to be Mbappe on Amavi.
Yeah. No, it's not possible. I mean, knowing Garcia, he's very capable of just dumping Amavi in the crap.
I hope so because
starting him.
I mean, Amavi. Honestly, I think he works. He's quite like a. Do you remember Jordan Ayew? He was quite a player that worked with the confidence.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So, but now I think there was an element of putting Payet on the left wing and leaving Amavi completely on his own on the left side, and he lost confidence game by game. And to the point where now he's unsavable, unsalvageable. You're gonna put him back against PSG. He's gonna either get a red card or give 2 goals away, and that's his career finished at Marseille. You're just not doing any favor by putting him back in this game.
Who knows? Hopefully he won't, but it is likely.
Yeah, he will. I believe he will.
Right, guys, I think we'll move on to the next section. So I thought we could look ahead at Nice-Marseille on Sunday night. What are your thoughts about that game?
What to say about Nice, really? They're so inconsistent. They're capable of beating Lyon, albeit they were being dominating the whole game, but they still won. And then just losing against Angers 3-0. They're really reliant on Saint-Maximin and Attal, who are great players, but they're very, very offensively minded. But I think Vieira tried to instill this passing, to continue Favre's passing mentality, but the quality is just not there, I think. So they make a lot of mistakes at the back. And if you have a Campos in this game, you can make a lot of damage picking up those balls.
Yeah. And we know that Balotelli is going to be super motivated to shut some mouths. So Balotelli will score. I think it's a given that he will score there.
It's a home game, actually. The game's in Marseille.
Is it?
Yeah. It's 2 home games.
I can see it being very, very similar to the game yesterday, to be fair.
I think it's easy pickings, really. I think Balotelli will be up for it. Nice are just woefully inconsistent. I think it would be easy. We could just put on the youth team at half time if this team as well.
Yeah. I think playing Sakai is a good thing against Nice because the little right wing back they've got, Attal, he looks fantastic and he's really good for really good going forward. And I do worry that he would just destroy Jordan Amavi.
And all I'm saying is that Attal was actually proposed, he was offered to Marseille for 2 million when he placed in League 2 last year, and then we didn't even scout player.
Don't even want to hear that. That's just sickening.
No, I think the one thing that I've got in the back of my mind is this for me is Balotelli's first big test, because they know him and they will try and wind him up, and if he keeps his head in this game, bearing in mind that he's capable of everything, if he keeps his head in this game, scores his goal, celebrates as he wants to, and then doesn't get sent off, doesn't get injured, because they will kick him. This is his first big test. He needs to stand up and prove that he's moved on. He's not the player he was. Mentally, he's stable and he's capable of carrying us.
Yeah, I agree. And in terms of Nice's style, they're very similar to Saint-Etienne in a way that they play a three at the back, which is clearly favourable to a Lopez Sanson because we have the ball most of the time, and they are not very impressive apart from when they counter attack, and we see him with Kamara and Chatzar. Chatzar may be big, but he's actually quite fast, and we seem to be able to hold these counterattacks down. I think it's going to be very favourable for us. We're probably going to have most of the possession. I'll probably talk about 65% of the possession. And I reckon Balotelli probably scores. And maybe his new best friend, Thauvin, scores another.
Right, so I want to hear your predictions. What's your prediction to score?
I'd say 3-1. I can
Right,
see us winning 3-1.
What about you, Ed?
3-0.
3-0? Oh, that's confident.
I'll probably stick to a 2-1. Given that I was right about this prediction against Saint-Etienne, I think we're probably going to concede by Saint-Maximin, and then Balotelli will probably score a couple.
He's very confident. I think I'm going to go for 1-0. I think Nice are quite strong defensively, quite a defensive team, and I think Marseille will struggle to score many goals against them.
It's going to depend how we approach the game. If we go into it, foot on the gas as we did yesterday, Sanson, Lopez spraying balls around, we will be too much for them in the first few minutes. But if we don't capitalise on those minutes and score, similarly to how we saw a very good, vibrant Velodrome last night behind the team, if we don't score and the stadium starts getting frustrated, especially in a local derby, it can go the other way.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we'll move on now, and we'll, as said before, I think we'll have a look at the January transfer window. So in January, we saw just one player arrive. We saw Mario Balotelli, came from Nice on a free transfer, and we've also seen a few outgoings as well, such as Gregory Sertic and Christopher Rocchia, I believe. What are your thoughts on the January period?
Well, we've highlighted the issue with OM-ASSE, and not bringing in a left back is quite it's quite interesting that you let Rocchia go, and there was this whole imbroglio over whether, I think we blocked it initially and then we let him go towards the end of the window, which generally signals that we found someone to bring in instead of him. But nobody came in, and OM-ASSE has just gotten worse and worse, frankly. And well, he has improved a bit. I think he seems a bit more concentrated in games, but that clearly was the only other position in the team that needed strengthening with the number 9 position, and we didn't do it.
Yeah. I think it's been I mean, when you look at the Balotelli right now, I agree. Like, this is a great addition to the team, and it was needed. But I mean, you saw another interview with Garcia the other week, who says, we're waiting for the summer mercato to hopefully bring in a left back. It's been a year and a half, nearly 2 years now, that Evra has been fired effectively. How are we still on this issue that we still haven't got a clear idea of who's going to be next? I mean, when you look at Lyon last year, they needed a right back in a January transfer window, but they couldn't, right? So they bought Dubois and then left him in Nantes.
Yeah.
And came back first day of the mercato. We're going to spend another summer mercato buying a left back in August, probably Dalbert or Conan or someone like that. And then it's going to take so long to get back into this.
Who do you think?
That topic is Kenny Lala. Is he a right back, a left back?
He's a right back.
He can play left back.
He can play left back. Yeah. Who do you think's to blame for that? Do you think it's Garcia, Zubizarreta, or Iro?
God knows, it's such a long-winded subject. I mean, Ed, you could probably weigh in here, but it's who the hell knows how that trio works, and it just seems to be completely random in terms of when we go for a player, who signs it off. Is Zubizarreta making the recommendations? If so, is Garcia blocking all of them? What is Ero doing? He quite clearly stated that he was giving full powers to the manager. So what is the point of Zubizarreta? So you sort of question that structure.
Yeah, where are they getting these recruiting? What videos are they watching, seeing these players? I mean, who in their right mind thought, let's sign Gregory Sertic? I mean, What on earth were they playing at?
Apparently that was
Garcia.
Garcia. Was that I read at the time that was Garcia's wish to sign Sertic.
Well, we'll delve into it when we get onto the Tapi topic. But we know the kind of characters that float around the club, and him and Radonjic, interestingly enough, is same agent as Rudy Garcia. And does he get a kickback? Probably.
Who is the agent?
So the agent is
It's not Bernays, is it?
No, it's not Bernays.
It's not Bernays. I can't remember either.
It's the same. He worked with Radonjic at Roma, and he quite clearly went for him. And let's be honest, we paid a bit of an overinflated fee for him. And Sertic was the same. I can understand. For me, Sertic is quite similar to when we went for Romao when we needed a number 6 back then, except that Romao has got the physical qualities and could come in and actually, if you look at him now, I mean, he's doing a hell of a job.
Yeah. I think just quickly on that Radonjic before I start ranting about that trio. I did talk to a Red Star Belgrade fan shortly after we signed him, and he said he had no understanding why Marseille put so much, because you put that much money for potential, right? But he said it was very clear what Radonic's gameplay was. It was a very wasteful player, capable of brilliant moments, but you could see that he was peaking, or he was always going to be that type of player.
I had the same conversation with a Red Star Belgrade fan on Twitter. Actually, he told me the same things at the start, and he was shown to be right. Actually, from what I've seen of Radonjic over the first few months, I was quite disappointed. But
I think there's still a lot more to see on Radonjic. It's not like we're dooming him already, but I think when you look at his history and people's feedback on him, I'm not that hopeful, to be fair.
Yeah. So going back to Gregory Sertic, are you pleased then that he's left the club temporarily?
The floor is yours, Ed.
Very much so. I think if you know the Twitter account Thomas, the Hyde Marseille Twitter account, I messaged him on Snapchat asking, who is this guy? And he said, excuse my language, he said he was a fucking shit player. I think really. He was that one or contributed absolutely nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's actually gone to FC Zurich just until June, though, until the end of the season. So he could end up back at Marseille. But I think
he's got to go. He's got to go.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. He's got another year in his contract at Marseille. Runs until June 2020. But I mean, I was disappointed when he came, but one thing I did remember at the time was he had a year or two at Bordeaux where he played quite well and he was quite solid, and I think that's possibly how he managed to somehow jump from Bordeaux, being an average player, to signing for Marseille.
Exactly, and interestingly, when he peaked at Bordeaux, it was at the centre-back position.
Yeah, that's right. And that's when I think when he was signed was because Garcia wanted someone that could play in midfield and in defence. And it was in the January of 2017 when the first transfer window after McCourt bought the club, and he wanted to bring in some defensive cover, but they weren't able to go out and get a top defender at the time. I think they were linked with names like Rami, Abdenour, Benatia, but they knew they had to wait till the summer to get someone.
You say that, but they went out and bought Payet a couple of weeks later. So it's a very interesting.
Well, it was obviously
interesting.
Sertic was the defender was the cheap option, wasn't it? It was to spend the money on Payet and bring a defender in on the cheap until the summer, and Sertic was the one that Garcia said yes to.
Yeah,
for some strange reason. But
I think when I start reflecting on that little trio, I think it's important. Like, obviously they're being branded like OM Champions Project, but I think they changed philosophy a little bit, because they started saying, right, we need to start winning right away. So let's get 29, 30-year-olds in who are experienced like Sertic.
That's what Garcia has always done.
Yeah, but then last year, I think maybe because they started seeing the amount of money that these people cost. Like last year's window, you started buying Radonjic, which doesn't fit with the history that Garcia's had.
It's very strange. But then Radonjic, Garcia had played with him before. He'd managed him at Roma.
No, but
He was in the Roma academy.
Yeah.
He never played a game for Roma.
Yes, but he was familiar with him, and maybe that's why he was willing to accept that.
He introduced him to his agent.
Yeah,
It's as simple as that.
I don't know really. I think Zubizarreta, from the feedback that I get from people who like look a lot into the youth team, he's had a lot of not short-term impact, but he's made a lot of restructurations to the youth system. So I think that's really useful, because that's what we're going to need to do. We're not a state.
It was long overdue.
Yeah, long overdue.
Interestingly, it all came out. So they had this big OM Nation dinner on Saturday that we were all invited to as members, but conveniently they only sent the invitation out the week before, which is that needs some work. But he did mention this is all to Zubi's credit, and he recommended an 8-fold increase in the investment into the youth program, which he got signed off. Yeah. And we're seeing that. I mean, we can see that we're entering partnerships with local clubs. I think we entered a partnership with was it an Algerian-based club the other day?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did.
And I think Hero, his closing statement was, look, our objective is we've seen Lyon, and as haters, as much as we love to hate Lyon, their model is sound, and they're producing quality youngsters. They've got 3 or 4 consistently starting in the first team that, they brought a couple in that were on post sort of formation like Ndombele, and they've turned him into a great player. And then you look at players like Aouar, he's phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We need to start developing those players.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's a topic actually that we can use in another podcast. It's such an interesting area of the club, and it's going to be really good to see how these changes sort of over the next few years, whether or not they come to fruition and start producing some good young players for Marseille.
And then the last takeaway from the dinner on Saturday was Hero has requested that we stop using the term OM Champions Project.
Yeah, a lot of expectations management, isn't it? That one?
So it's quite interesting. But,
dear.
Why is that? It's because PSG fans are laughing at us when we get mullered every time.
It's not
Wasn't
just
it?
PSG
I think it was
fans,
It was Macron 3 years ago who said, "I want PSG to be scared of playing us the week before because they can't seem to beat us." Come on.
Maybe you should try putting drugs in their drinks.
Maybe that's what they serve at the OM Nation dinner. That's why they were clapping.
Well, I think that sort of brings us to our next subject and our last one tonight, which is just a review of the news at the moment. So, probably the biggest story that I've sort of seen in the last week is the accusations against Bernard Tapie. Ben, do you want to talk us through a little bit about that?
It's very brief. So, very brief. So Tapie, for those that know him from the football point of view, he also went on to then have a political career, and also, he made quite a lot of money from suing a former employer, and he bought La Provence newspaper, and this person Fratani, who's crawled out of the woodwork, interestingly enough, a few years ago wrote a book about Tapie and praised him, and then it seems that in recent years Tapie didn't follow through on a, or who knows if it's a promise, but an agreement to promote him in the newspaper, and Fratani has decided to have sour grapes. The fact is, where's the proof? Bring the proof to the table. You're saying that you participated in bribing a referee. Which one? What's his name? Which game was it specifically? And it just seems to be very simple that any time Tapie is mentioned in the French press, they just squirm around and they just love it. And the main takeaway I make from it is, Tapie's name comes up in something that was allegedly done 25 years ago, when all the teams were probably doing dodgy stuff.
Absolutely.
It's been proven. We lost against Parma in '97. They were all doped. Bordeaux, PSG, where PSG threw the game away to make Bordeaux champions instead of us.
Or the year before '93 against Benfica, it was the Vada handball.
The handball, yeah. And
nobody screams about that.
It does feel like that we've kind of become the scapegoat for a period of corruption. Other than Juventus, maybe in about sort of 10 years ago, when the Serie A scandal.
Wenger brings it up regularly and says that he hates Marseille for that. But my last 2 cents on the topic is, Tapie's name comes up. He gets a 2-page spread in Le Monde, which is, it's not even a sports newspaper. It's one of the main respected, daily newspapers that comes out in France. And PSG, it's been proven, have colluded with the authorities and Manchester City to falsify their documents and sponsorships, to go around the rules that restricted them from buying players at ridiculous prices, and they get half a page in L'Equipe, and suddenly and suddenly nobody's talking about it anymore.
The thing is with the L'Equipe and all that, because I think when you look at the history of L'Equipe, they're obviously the mainstay. They're like the go-to sports magazine, and and when you look at the history and how that actually became about, they actually crushed all of the others to make sure that they will be the mainstay. So everybody looks at L'Equipe as if they're the voice of France. And the only thing that Marseille fans or even Marseille officials are being told by these journalists when you're saying, look at PSG, look at the new Accor Hotel contract, which is 60 million for a sponsorship.
Thank you,
but who's bought basically bought by themselves. All you being answered is saying, oh yeah, but see what Tapi did allegedly for 25 years ago. Yeah. And it's just like, well, okay, so what are we just skipping over what PSG's doing right?
Why is this coming out now as well? It's just after 25 years. Why does
it's just convenient? And Tapi this morning, he was on Europe 1 radio in France. He was asked the question. He had a 1 hour slot booked, I think, and they asked him the question straight away. He said, "Look, I'll address this once and final. It's bullshit. The guy's got sour grapes. Where's the proof? People love dragging my name through the dirt. I don't want to hear about it anymore." Yeah. They tried to insist, and he just fair play. He just walks out the studio.
Can I weigh in on this one?
Go ahead.
Because I am, of course, like I said, I am a bit of a worshipper of Mr. Tapi. I really think this is a load of crap. I mean, this whole accusation, this guy. I mean, who is this gentleman? What did he do at Marseille? I've never heard of him once. And
I think he was a driver. I'd read.
Driver?
I'm sure I read that.
Jesus Christ.
If he's driver. Oh, I can imagine.
Don't quote me on that. I might be wrong, but that's what I'd understood. But sorry, go ahead.
No. Well, I think it's ridiculous. If he's the driver, I mean, what's he going to do? Is he writing the slips down like, Mr. Tapi, do you want the slip for this referee here? Yeah. Here we go. But I really think this is a load of cockwatt. I don't think Tapi. I think Tapi, he's a divisive figure in France. He is you either love him or you hate him. And I think really, he's not particularly. I don't think these accusations are true. But then you got all these.
Yeah.
I mean, how do we not know OM-ASSE has been doing it? How do we not know the Monaco board has not been doing it?
Absolutely, we don't. That's the thing.
They're going around the rules another way with the tax haven. So it's interesting to know. You've sort of studied Tapi and all of this, and do you agree? Do you think that there is a general bias, not just football-wise, but politically towards him?
I think it's the typical story of the boy who comes from the bottom, who makes good. And they're all trying to knock him down. He's not perfect. He's never been perfect. But for me, I don't think he's corrupt in this case. I think it's I think it's just the French media. It's a north-south bias. They're all licking their lips, thinking, "Okay, what can we get our on? Find some stuff. Pick it out the air."
I think whoever playing well, we need to decredibilize them.
Yeah,
let's take some merit away from them.
I think because I'm not obviously I was too young to be really involved with Tapi's leadership. I've only ever heard of it, but I think from the last 10 years of me being on social media and seeing really journalists, not just from just reading the journal, but really just reading journalists' views on things. I don't really care anymore because it doesn't matter what you do, whether it's true or false. It's always going to come up.
Absolutely.
So we're never going to hear the truth.
Yeah.
We just never are, and we're always going to hear accounts of really very coincidental times. Because Tapi's having a hearing for a trial in I believe it's this week or next week. And it's just coming out today. So you know what? Say whatever you want.
Yeah.
And the bloke's battling cancer, for Christ's sake. Just give him a break. Jesus.
Do you know
He's
what?
Not even involved with football anymore.
I'm going to say, I don't even really care if the accusations are true or not. At the end of the day, it's in the past.
It's the same. And it's two things. My final say on it is I'm going to get to the point. And funny enough, L'Equipe, who is a pro-PSG newspaper, has been banned from going to their training ground. But I'm almost leaning towards doing what Liverpool fans do with the Sun and just boycotting the hell out of it. I barely read it anymore. I've stopped subscribing to it.
Okay.
And then on the second note, that the funniest thing is people are trying desperately to tie Tapi to the Champions League victory and saying that wasn't merited. And anybody who believes that a guy like Tapi, as all powerful as he was, could outpunch or outcorrupt someone like Silvio Berlusconi is
absolutely. I know, absolutely. This is the thing. Like, when you think about the possibility that other clubs might have been doing some dodgy stuff at that time as well, and I don't want to make accusations about AC Milan because they had an outstanding team during that period. But yeah, I mean, you would think Berlusconi is a bit of a master of corruption. So you've got to imagine that you've got to imagine that he might have been up to a few things himself. So at the end of the day, like the trophy was won. It's in the past, and I mean, I haven't really heard a lot from AC Milan fans complaining about it, to be honest. Like, I'm in my life, so I mean, I think we just got to move on and accept what's happened, and I'll quite gladly take that one Champions League.
What do they want? Do they want a repeat of the final? The players about 50 odd years. Right.
No, I think that they want the title taken away. But I think my final statement on at least this bit of news is fine. Okay, I'm all for saying, right, let's take away the title to all the teams that, like, to Marseille, because they've been shown
give us the 1997 Europa.
Give us the Europa League against Parma. Like, put on trial all the other teams, like Juventus, who've literally been downgraded for doping and cheating. But no, we're being put as the face of corruption 25 years ago, when teams have been doing it on and on and on and on and on again ever since, and before that.
Absolutely, and I think we'll just finish there, and just to reaffirm what I said earlier on, Mark Fratani was the driver and personal assistant for Bernard Tapie. So, I mean, I think that says it all about the.
Did he not tip him enough? Is that what it is?
I think it puts it all into context, doesn't it? To know who he was and what his involvement was in the club and their affairs at the time. So I don't know. I think you've got to take that with a pinch of salt, haven't you? Right. So there was a couple other stories I think that came up as well in the last week that we'll just touch on briefly. So you may have seen the VAR. Coming into the news again. So Marseille were denied a penalty against Nîmes at the start of the season. What are your thoughts on that and the recent revelations in the press about the VAR process?
Thanks for that, LMP. Trouble is, it's a few months too late.
Well, what worries me more is the LFP covered it up. They didn't come out and actually say we fucked up. There was a malfunction. Oh no! That was their line. They didn't come out and say, "Oh well, we're reviewing how we're doing VAR in light of what we've heard the referee discussing with his assistant." And that transparency. Yes, we'd have been pissed off about it for a week or two, like we were. But just to know that they're going to try and improve it in light of that, and they'll take it as a trial error and improve it as a result of that. Fine. It's just been covered up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think for the if obviously viewers out there that don't have the means to French speaking news, so obviously I'm a university, so I have a lot of time to watch these talk shows, and whether it's Le Phocéen or Football Club Marseille or even On Mouille le Micro talked about it, the general feeling that they say is like, yes, this is outrageous. But we shouldn't complain about it too much because we got stumped in that game and that wouldn't have changed a thing. And I agree, but I don't think that's the argument here. I think the argument here is to show that personally, I love VAR. I'm for VAR, but it only outlines the lack of competency of the French referees. It's just listen to the guy. Why are you arguing against the VAR referee?
Yeah, it's true. And then the French league is very, very. It's well documented, and you've had it in the past where British referees or Champions League referees have come out and said, "Yeah, I made a mistake. I made the wrong call." And in France, the referees seem to be in this isolated, protective bubble They're untouchable. They're uncritical. They can't be criticised, and it's led and it culminated last season when we had a referee trip up a player.
who's now being paid to be on Canal Plus as a consultant.
Yes, there's just this little microcosm of let's pat each other's back and let's all support each other and help each other out and cover ourselves in glory. At the expense of transparency in the game, and it's not just Marseille. It isn't just us, which is even worse.
The worst defender is Clement Turpin. Let's be honest. I watched him when he refereed England, Switzerland.
He did well he did us proud last night.
Because he doesn't like Saint-Etienne either. He was torn. He was torn between hating Marseille and hating Saint-Etienne. And finally, it is pro Lyon side that said, you know what? Screw Marseille. Saint-Etienne are the true enemy.
Yeah. He was refereeing the game. I've never shouted at the referee more. I was shouting, "You biased twat, you tosser, you." I went full DT from Arsenal Fan TV that night. Yeah. Not pretty. They're just awful. Why has no one said to them, "Look, guys, you're making far too many mistakes. Get on with it, or get new ones in from League 2."
Yeah, I agree.
And they have, the newer referees that have come in, I think, have done quite well. Fair play to them.
Yeah, and I think, disclaimer, I absolutely hate, all the Marseille fans, Pierre Menez, the consultant on Canal Plus.
God, I can't stand him.
However, he's very, very critical of the refereeing, and there was a run when he basically, you could see during the pre-games of the Sunday game, every time they were showing a highlight of the referee mistake, he would scoff or he would make a comment. And the union of the referees, instead of deciding, all right, there's far too many mistakes, let's look at the issue, they put a complaint in against Pierre Menez and banning him from making any sarcastic comments against the referees on the show. And it's just have you got no reflective abilities and say, right, okay, we're getting far too much criticism. Let's look at how we're training our referees. Let's look at how they're talking to the players, because clearly they're not de-escalating situations. All they're doing is frustrating players more and more by giving them yellow cards for no reason, or just saying, sending them off for just saying you talk to me badly. There's no psychology involved, and it's just leading to players like Thauvin, when he got sent off, just saying, they're just what are you doing? What are you looking at? You're not using the VAR correctly.
Absolutely, and I was really pleased about VAR coming in, and I do think it's a good addition to the league. But it's strange that we've had cases this season where I question the decisions that have come as a result of the VAR, and
there have
it's
been
just
a
bizarre.
few against us. There have been a few against us, but worryingly, it's on the other side of it. You see 11 penalties for Lille. And you see Lyon earlier in the season. I think it was actually the first game of the season where Bertrand Traoré scores a goal. He's a yard offside.
Mm-hmm. It needs to be used consistently, doesn't it?
Exactly.
I think on that note, though, I think we'll probably wrap it up tonight, guys. To say thanks very much for taking part, and thank you
for setting it up.
Thank you, and thanks for listening, everyone. Good night.
Ciao, ciao.
Take care. Bientôt. Bye.
Bientôt.